I'm offering you a psychological profile of Buffalo Bill based on the case evidence.
Unlike Jodie Foster, Mike Berry doesn't have to go and visit psychopaths. He works with them.
New to BBC One, Crime Limited, giving a behind-the-scenes insight into criminals, the victims of their crimes, and the police who track them down, here and abroad.
Julius Ingram and Carlos Montserrat are no ordinary cops. Their brief is to clean up the streets of all Manhattan.
Uh-oh. Violation.
Crime Limited starts on Tuesday at 8:30 on BBC One.
In 15 minutes, Mastermind. Now the news with Michael Burke.
Muslim guerrillas are fighting amongst themselves for control of Kabul. UN calls for a ceasefire are being ignored. And Leeds United are the new league champions. Good evening. It's been a day of fierce fighting on the streets of the Afghan capital Kabul as rival Mujahideen rebels struggle for control of the city. Ahmed Shah Massoud's fighters, loyal to the new provisional government, seem to be gaining the upper hand over Muslim radicals who want to set up a strict Islamic state. The UN has called for an immediate ceasefire, but has been ignored. From Kabul, Jeremy Bowen reports.
Fighters loyal to Ahmed Shah Massoud driving off an attack from their fiercest rivals, the Hezbi Islami. They've been enemies for 12 years. Now they're fighting for the greatest prize, control of the capital city. Uzbek mercenaries who were used as shock troops by the Soviets and by the old government have made an alliance with Massoud. They're disciplined soldiers, they fight to the death, but they have a brutal reputation. Here they disarm a group of Shiites. Massoud's men and their allies are getting the better of it so far. They secured the presidential palace this morning after a fierce battle with Hezbi Islam. Massoud's forces are well trained. They forced their enemies away from the palace. It epitomizes everything they despised about the old order. Hatred of the regime was the only thing that tied the competing groups of Mujahideen together. Now both Massoud and Hezbi Islami's leader, Gulbuddin Hekmatyar, believe that power is within their grasp, but it can only be seized at the other's expense. Less than 24 hours after the Mujahideen took Kabul, the worst nightmares of its people have come true. The city's split along political and ethnic lines, and this fighting can only get worse. Civilians are caught in the crossfire. A slum to the east of Kabul was attacked by Hezbi Islami. Either they were targeting the residents because they support Massoud, or their fire was inaccurate. In their panic, they tried to get to somewhere that was safe. In the end, all they found was a place to put the dead. They asked why their God, in whose name this war is being waged, allowed this to happen. No one hears us, they said, and they condemned Gulbuddin Hekmatyar, whose Hezbi forces shelled their homes. Civilians demanded weapons to defend themselves and their families. There's a real danger that this city will be consumed by violence in the next hours and days, and nobody wants to be without a gun. Too many cities in Afghanistan have been stripped by looters after they've fallen to the Mujahideen. After years of privations, the people here are ready for plunder. Looting is a Pashtun tradition. Massoud, a Tajik, has ordered his men to stop it. They're having some success. There are plenty of weapons in Kabul. The government's armories have been broken open. Afghanistan doesn't have a chance while the killing continues. This should be a time for negotiation, for a political settlement. The only thoughts now, though, are about winning the battle for the capital city. Jeremy Bowen, BBC News, Kabul.
A short while ago, Jeremy Bowen came on the line from Kabul, and I asked him what's happening there now.
Tonight in Kabul, Michael, there's a lot of gunfire and a lot of explosions once again. Some of it is the sort of celebratory firing we see after every Mujahideen victory, but some of it, I'm pretty sure, is more hand-to-hand combat between the two different factions here.
Is there a danger now that the Mujahideen who are in the countryside will get sucked into the fighting for the capital?
I think there's a real danger of that, Michael. I've been to visit the Hezbi Islami people who are in the desert outside Kabul in the last couple of days. They're well armed, they have tanks and heavy weapons. I think that if they haven't moved up towards the city already, they certainly will be doing that tonight and tomorrow. It's a very dangerous moment because this conflict is along ethnic lines, mirroring this split in the country. That means that a political solution, which is of course what this country really needs, is particularly hard to find at the moment.
The interim council that's meant to be running Afghanistan is still marooned in Pakistan at the moment. If they ever do get to Kabul, will they make a difference? Are they liable to be able to impose peace and order?
That interim government is an unwieldy body which has many internal contradictions, and it's likely to arrive, if it does arrive, in a city where there's fighting on a great number of streets and in lots of the suburbs and in the centre and around the presidential palace and in various fortresses. So its job is really very difficult indeed, I'm afraid.
Here, the leader of one of Britain's biggest unions has said that Labour Party policy should not be decided by the union bloc vote. Bill Jordan, the president of the Engineers Union, said MPs alone should choose the party leader. He described Labour's current leadership contest as a charade. A report from our political correspondent Martin Dow.
Despite pleas from some leadership contenders, engineering union leaders today stuck by their decision not to ballot their members before casting their votes. They say it's too expensive. And they were making clear their view that the role of unions, both in choosing the leader and in formulating conference policy, should be ended.
We have the present position where the electorate believe that the bloc vote dominates not just the leadership elections, but Labour's policies as well. And so long as that belief is in the minds of the electors, it's going to be increasingly difficult for Labour to form a government.
Currently, trade union leaders control more than 75% of the votes at party conferences, leaving ordinary members with little say. One leadership candidate, speaking on TVAM's Frost on Sunday, said that while union links should be retained, their conference votes should be heavily reduced.
I'm plucking figures out of the air, but it should be, I would have thought, something not more than about 20-25%.
John Smith's campaign organiser says he too wants to move the party further towards one member, one vote.
That does mean that we will be looking for a new relationship with the trade unions. The trade unions are a source of strength to us when they enable us to be in contact with the members that they represent in the workplace. But we also need to be able to show that it is the Labour Party that's deciding for itself its policy for the future.
Party managers must be hoping that any new voting procedures can avoid the chaos surrounding the attempts to alter the rules for the current contest. Tomorrow, the first meeting of Labour MPs in the new Parliament will be given a ruling by party officials on the controversial changes to the nominations process. That'll leave just under 30 hours for MPs to decide whether the person they've backed is a no-hoper and whether they should switch their nominations to someone more likely to qualify for the race.
5 people have been reported missing in a small town in northern California at the center of a series of earthquakes and aftershocks. 3 big tremors there registered between 6 and 7 on the Richter scale. The latest was felt 500 miles away. This series of earthquakes follows one in southern California on Wednesday.
In the logging town of Scotia, south of Eureka, the result of the first major aftershock. The fire at this shopping centre was fuelled by ruptured gas lines. The business district was destroyed. Fire crews fought to save the lumber company.
This is our town right here. I mean, this is it. And now it's gone.
Elsewhere, power lines were cut and bridges damaged, and one report says 5 people are missing in nearby Petrolia. The town of Ferndale was still recovering from yesterday's major earthquake and had felt dozens of smaller aftershocks when the large one struck, causing more damage. In the first quake, historic 19th century homes were knocked from their foundations. Chimneys collapsed and a gas explosion compounded the problems. More than 50 people were hurt.
And when the floor pops and the windows pop and the dishes are coming off the cupboards are coming down, then, you know, you're in a big one.
Well, it was scary.
Seismometers in Britain's bedrock picked up the vibrations of yesterday's quake 11 minutes after it occurred, some 5,000 miles away. This weekend's tremors come just 4 days after another serious quake caused severe damage in Southern California. It's reawakened fears amongst some that it's a foretaste of an even bigger earthquake, but experts say that as time has passed, that's become less likely.
Mexico's Attorney General says leaking petrol caused last week's explosion, which killed nearly 200 people in Guadalajara. 4 employees of the state-owned oil company Pemex and 3 city officials face negligence charges. The Attorney General's report says that for weeks a corroded pipe allowed petrol into the sewage system, where it combined with leakages of an industrial solvent. Others criticised include the former mayor, who resigned 2 days ago for failing to act when the leak was first reported. The European Community-sponsored talks on the future of Bosnia-Herzegovina are to go ahead in Lisbon tomorrow. Invitations have been sent to Serbs, Croats and Muslims. Fighting is continuing in breach of the ceasefire, but the capital, Sarajevo, is reported to be mostly quiet as people celebrate the Orthodox Easter.
It was Easter morning by the Serbian Orthodox calendar, and the Bosnian Serbs were celebrating more widely than they used to in the communist years, but with a special urgency to their prayers for peace, for they're 3 weeks into the bloodshed of civil war. All the communities here have suffered, the Muslims perhaps most of all. This village near the airport has been attacked by the Serbs and the Federal Army. Its mosque has been blitzed, 8 of its people killed. Yet today, the leader of Bosnia's Serbs embarked on a peace offensive before leaving for Lisbon tomorrow.
If we didn't have hope for political solutions, we would already free Sarajevo. We would have taken it, because we can take it.
To make his point, and he did it vividly, Mr. Karadzic took us on a tour of the Serbs' frontline positions overlooking Sarajevo. He used an old Serbian greeting, "May God help you." The purpose of this high-visibility exercise was to show that the Serbs were observing the ceasefire here and, he said, intended to go on doing so.
We don't shoot. We try to keep peace and not to control the surrounding of Sarajevo.
You could take the city tomorrow, couldn't you?
Anytime.
This is the strength of the Serbs' position, that Sarajevo lies at their feet. They say they're willing to negotiate about anything, but if the Muslims want war, they can have war, and the city is indefensible. Martin Bell, BBC News, above Sarajevo.
Finance ministers from the 7 leading industrial nations have begun their talks in Washington. Germany is resisting pressure for it to cut interest rates. But the main issue for the G7 meeting is backing a $4 billion IMF loan to help Russia's ailing economy. This could depend on the Russian representative persuading the ministers that Moscow isn't relaxing the strict financial reforms which are seen as essential for curbing inflation. Leeds United have won the Football League Championship for the first time in 18 years. They took the title by beating Sheffield United, while their rivals, Manchester United, were beaten by Liverpool.
For the travelling army of Leeds fans, the journey towards the championship had been transformed from one of hope to one of expectancy in the space of a week. With Manchester United faltering, their team arrived at Bramall Lane today with the destiny of the title race within their grasp. They seized it, though initially they scarcely looked like doing so as Alan Cork put Sheffield United ahead. But just before half-time, Wallace knocked in an equaliser he could have known little about. The championship, though, was effectively settled during a roller-coaster second half as first Newsom put Leeds in front, only for his teammate Chapman to give Sheffield United an own goal equaliser. Leeds needn't have worried. 9 minutes later, United's Gale repaid the compliment, looping a header over his own injured goalkeeper. As a goal which was ultimately to decide the championship, it'll go down as one of football's more bizarre memories. At the final whistle, Leeds stood on the championship threshold, their fans having to endure on television another 90 minutes of tension as rivals Manchester United took on Liverpool at Anfield, and, to their delight, fell behind to an Ian Rush goal after 11 minutes. In the end, though, it was United's own misfortune that killed them off. Ince's drive, the first of 3 efforts to strike the woodwork. Their 25-year wait for the title was destined to continue, their agony confirmed as Walters finally sealed their fate. The pain of failure was written on every face. Across the Pennines, the mirror image.
Elated is the word, but it still hasn't quite sunk in properly yet. I'm sure it will during the evening and the following days. But it's an achievement we didn't think we'd do 2 weeks ago.
And tonight, the city of Leeds is celebrating a first championship since 1974.
The main news again, Muslim guerrillas are fighting amongst themselves for control of Kabul. The Secretary-General of the United Nations has called for a ceasefire, but tonight the shooting is still going on. That's it from the newsroom this weekend. Goodbye.
Good evening. The weather's looking pretty unsettled, and I think we're all going to have some rain in the next few days. The reason, this large area of low pressure, and although that one might move out of the way, others are going to come in to take its place. This is the way things looked from space this afternoon. A lot of heavy showers across the country. Those were some thunderstorms, and there was a veil of cloud across the southeast as some more persistent rain moved away. Now, we're still left with some showers on this latest radar here, one or two of them fairly heavy in northern areas, and I think they're going to linger throughout the night, especially in those northwestern parts, hail and thunder in them. Some other western coasts having the odd shower, but central and eastern areas, probably a fine, clear night and a rather chilly night as well, although with the strong winds, I don't think we need to worry too much about low temperatures. Another little area of low pressure whistling in for tomorrow. A bright start virtually everywhere, a fair amount of sunshine, but right from the word go, there will be those showers in western areas, again some of them quite heavy, clouds bubbling up during the course of the day in central and eastern parts, and a fair number of showers breaking out. But in the south, they'll die away, or turn light at least in the second part of the day, but that's only to allow some more persistent rain to come swinging up during the course of the evening. And it looks as if it's going to end up pretty wet in that southern half of Britain. Those are the temperatures tomorrow, although they're not too bad. I think with the cloud and wind and rain, probably feel rather on the cool side. Into Tuesday, showers in the north, wet in the south.
It's time for the Benny Hill Show.
Hello, viewers. I had no idea we was on, sir.
He was the first star, variety star, to be made by television.
In those films, I mean, it's always the women that are chasing Benny Hill and not Benny Hill that's chasing the women.
It's cornball stuff, and that's funny.
Well, I think it's very traditional English humour. It's a sort of seaside postcard, end of the pier.
There's only one Benny Hill.
A tribute to Benny Hill tonight, 10:30 on 2.
We don't want to hurt anybody, but the world must understand that this land belongs to us.
Fanatic Jewish West Bank settlers. Every man in half an hour.
And before that, Mastermind with Magnus Magnusson.